and I'm starting to reach a stride after the astronaut game and the survival game. And I'm going to try another format here where I'm going to do just a theater of the mind improv style adventure using the Zen Fantasy rules. Now, I am Duquesne, and I am a barbarian. It's probably not the best of characters for an investigative style game, but I can slant it toward more combat, and I enjoy the dice rolls myself. All characters start destined, so I'm +1 to the dice. That's nice. And my main thing is that I can do combat. I'm a barbarian. I roll 2d6 and I take the higher. And others roll a single d6, and the gadgeteer rolls 2d6 and take lower, but I'm not a gadgeteer. If I try magic, the Empress is good at magic, but the barbarian, me, I'm not that good at magic. But I'm okay at do something, anything, which is more the gadgeteer rolling 2 dice, and the enchantress rolling 2 dice but taking the lower. Now, critical deeds in this case can be used to remove certain penalties, as well as critical insight can be used to remove certain penalties. That's probably the major change from some of the previous testing I've done. And there's more actions in the game for the combat. There's a scourge. Now, scourges are different things that happen. It's a general term. Again, this is a game that's going to be very evocative. Very much you're going to be using your imagination. You're going to be handling the, if you play this with teenagers, you're going to have to choose your terms a little differently than if you're playing with college professors. And that's part of role play as well. It's always been an intellectual exercise, but even more so, it's starting to appeal to a more mainstream group of players. But let's start with our quest. I'm going to just take a general quest here, and I will play Duquesne. I am Duquesne. I am recently promoted into the Curia Regis. It's an official body, and it's a stuffy, bureaucratic body. And I was looking for something perhaps to prove myself. And I noticed a section of the maps where there were a number of pins that had been stabbed in, and I asked one of the clerks what all this meant, and he said, well, that's the area where the barons are behind on their tithes and their rents. Why is that happening? Well, the reports from the 10 different places are varied, and every one of them has reasonable excuses for being behind, but mostly, we know the cost of a war down there would be far greater than 100 years of their meager rents, so we've left them alone. Well, this sounds like a perfect opportunity for me to go prove myself. I will go to these 10 barons, I will figure out what their problem is and why they cannot run their lands, and I will either replace them at my sword, or I will get them to pay their proper dues. Can't run an empire without gold. So let me switch the maps here. I came to the first one. I could tell right away that from the sneers I was getting from the local sheriffs that this was an area that was riddled with corruption. If anything was being collected from the fields, by the time it passed through the dozen or so hands to make it into the coffers of the tax assessors and the bureaucratic clerks, there was nothing left to be sent to the crown. It's a difficult problem, corruption. You can't just cut the head off of corruption. It has to be a change of style. It has to be a new return of mandate. It has to be an inspiration that people need to start realizing that they have a public interest in their fellow man. And there also has to be a fairness up and down the system. I looked at the pay schedule, and these men were just ridiculously underpaid, and that was leading to the problems. If you don't pay a man enough, well, he's going to get his livelihood some way or another. Also, the type of men they were recruiting. It's not enough just to be the biggest in the land in order to be the sheriff. I walked up to one of the sheriffs and said to him, "This is going to end, and it's going to end starting with you. You're going to be my squire here, and you're going to make things right." Now, at first, the man may not want to make things right. And for each of these, I'm going to just assign this one, for instance, corruption. This is going to take some critical insight, I think, to solve the problem. Now, critical insight is one of the worst things that I can try by myself, but I am destined. Now, I would roll 2 dice and subtract 1. looking for an outright 6 on critical insight. It's a very hard roll to make when you're taking 2 dice and subtracting 1, but I can work my way toward it. Perhaps I'll do something, anything. And again, since I'm playing solo and I'm not traveling with my servant squire, my servant tavernless. Since I'm just playing solo, I'll try to make a critical deed. It's still hard to do, and that will give me the ability to make a scourge, and between the two of them, I will mimic the critical insight. Is that a stretch in the imagination? Perhaps, but let's see what we can do with this. So rolling on do something, anything, I get to roll 1 die, and I add 1 to the die because I'm destined. And a 4. 4 becomes a 5. I made a poor guess at first. The sheriff I was talking to was not the person I needed. He was just some pimp. I needed to find the real power behind. I was really short and out of my scope here. I hope this was not going to be an endless series of bureaucrats and minor whining by people. Try again on the same table, rolling 1 die. A 3. A 3, bad faith. Add an extra critical deed to resolve. So now I have 2 critical deeds that I have. Ooh, I was getting dicey here. I was still confident in my ability. I punched the man in the gut and told him, I want a list of all the people that you pay in this area before you end up putting coins in your own purse. I know you're not the chief here. And here comes my roll. Single die 6, a 1. Gosh, you went from bad to worse right at the beginning. Kismet. Select, wow, what a lucky thing to happen. A Kismet, select any result from magic, perhaps pick a useful one. I'll pick that critical insight, boom, and solve this problem. The guy immediately gives up the enemy that I was looking for. However, when he gives up that enemy I'm looking for with my critical insight, I'm going to add a scourge that I'm going to need to escape. No, I'm sorry, I'm going to add a d6 minions or lose my destined status. You know what I'll do? I can fight a d6 enemy, so let me... The main guy in charge, the guy I needed to put in jail, he was guarded by a number of his cronies, and they all met me and thought they could take me. 6 men, 5 men, 1 man. After I just pulled my sword out and the gleam of the magic from it, 5 of them ran away. I was left to fight only the ruffian that was in charge, and he's just a lowly minion. So let me roll 2 dice on combat and take the better result. A 6 and a 5. Good roll for me. Although good rolls, when you have high probability, are just not the same impactful state as if I had started trying to roll 2 dice and taking the lower and adding 1. Let's go over here to this. 6, triumphal. Defeat a lowly minion, a great mob, or end a scourge. Else restore destined status. Now I will with this. I have both. I need to defeat a scourge that was added by the. I was misremembering. Yeah, ambushed. I only had that scourge if I had to do critical deed in scourge. I have to defeat 1 lowly minion in order to restore the realm after getting my critical insight, and I will call that a victory. The first Baron was in order. I wondered what else was going to happen along my journey. And these castle images are all off of the Space Gamer website. It's free there. Come on and join us in the talk if you like games. If you like politics, stay the F away. Just come and talk about games, okay? The second castle looked like it had been overrun. None of the money had been spent on any sort of repairs. There was no crews maintaining the walls. The wells were all dry. The muck needed to be pulled out of them. All the piping needed to be replaced. I went right to the man in charge and said, "What is going on here?" I realized that he was old and infirmed. He had no idea what was happening. So, who was actually in charge? There were 3 brothers behind him. None of them was taking responsibility. All of them wanted to be the Baron of the area, but the man that was officially the Baron, he was off on crusades, so 3 other brothers were basically waiting for that brother to die. An interesting dilemma. I decided I would divide the realm of this barony into 3, but not by geographic area as they had hoped. I did it by specialty. I put 1 man in charge of the water, 1 man in charge of the fire, and 1 man in charge of the dirt. When somebody in the crowd asked me about the air, I sort of exhaled and said, "Let me worry about the air." All right, so I got 3 guys, 1 doing it. I'm going to put them in competition. I go back to this. Now, sometimes you're going to have to flare the whole thing, but it sounds like I have to eliminate a scourge, and I have just the ability to do that. Now, combat is a general term, but the scourge is, you know, I can with my presence, with my prowess at arms, I can eliminate the scourge of this. I can get people to work. I know how to motivate them. Let me roll 2 dice and take the better. It's only a 2. And a 2 plus 1 comes on Destined becomes a 3. I'm exhausted. No more rolls here. Could recover after the action and lose my Destined status. Wow. After dealing with these 3 nitwits, I was just off to the pub to drink. And that meant that nothing was going to get done. Now, how can I eliminate that exhausted? I can eliminate that exhausted status down here with a critical D. At least I didn't have something where I would need to go back to the magic table, which is what I'm worse at. Critical Deed can be used to remove some penalties of exhausted or spirit wanes. It also heals injury as restoration. Found relics may do the same. I may add a relic as we go along in here. That'd be good. If you go into the ref page here, you can actually generate a mission. You know, I use images because I'm recording this. You don't certainly, you know, there's got to be something visual online. That's why I grab images off the net and try to, you know, break up the sounds of my voice. But you could just sit around the table here, and you could start with your buddies, and you could roll a handy situation to start, and you can then roll 1 for the group, or you can roll 1 for each player if you really want a lot to do, and you could pile it up, and there's examples of that we're doing online. And then after you get this speak with an NPC to progress, or end a critical problem to progress, you would move then to the handy middle of the quest, and you would roll there until you generate a result that'll move you on to the climax. And then at the climax, you resolve your critical problem, your great mobs. You'll have a little bit of combat, a little bit of strategy, and again, I think the majority of you know what you're doing. You're spending way too much money on modules, folks. Sorry to say, but you know, if you're dripping in cash, all power to you. But you can just sit down and you can make this stuff up. Back to my quest. I needed to make a roll here on my do something anything. I needed to stop washing my problems down, and after a good debauch, I was ready to get back into the action. What? Who's my man in charge of the water? Why aren't these wells filling? Well, it's the man in charge of the dirt hasn't dug them out. Man in charge of the dirt, why haven't you dug these wells out? Well, none of the blades are sharpened because there's no coal for the forges to sharpen them. Man is in charge of fire. Why aren't you bringing coal to the forges? Well, the mine hasn't used in ages. That's the Earth's responsibility. I punched the man I spoke to last in the face. I wanted to break his nose. Let's see what I got here. And I do not have destined status, so that's a 5. Sparks flow. Defeat a lowly minion, great mob, or gain a modifier to treat any roll 5 as 6. I'm going to take the modifier this time. Treat any 5 as a 6. I went back to the man and said, Are you ready to take responsibility for your actions? He sort of nodded his head. Now, I cheated myself here because I had exhausted myself. I would have to roll on critical deed. Now, that same 5-3 result would be a poor guess. Again here, use result 3. I punched the wrong man. Well, if I can't punch one guy and solve a problem, it's always best to punch 2. I rolled a single d6 here and see what I got on this. On a 5. Now, 5, again, without the destined status, is going to be that I'm another poor guess. Happens again, use result 3. Result 3 is bad faith. Add an extra critical deed to resolve. 2 critical deeds I have to resolve. Here I go again. Third man being punched. A 2. A 2 is Kismet. Select any result from magic. Pick perhaps a useful outcome. You know, I'm going to pick that triple dice here. Alter the cosmos. I knew I had some magic in me, but I don't like to flaunt it. It sort of makes Tantalus worried about his livelihood. And it's a good leader who lets his subordinates do the work. So with that Alter Cosmos, now I'm rolling 3 dice on this action. That'll give me a good bonus. Rather than 1 roll on Do Something Anything, I'm rolling 3 and taking the best. What I really need to do is get those 2 critical deeds that I need so that I can eliminate the exhausted status, eliminate the extra critical deed, and then roll to get my destined status back. Let's try with the first roll here. 3 dice on Do Something Anything. I got them all hand cloths to cover their noses. I apologized. I should have been a bigger man, I told them, but this is the problem with the world. Sometimes force is not what's necessary, it's organization. I swapped their roles. The man that was complaining that he did not have the forge is lit, I put him in charge of the mining and getting the fire. The man who said that the wells were needed to be dug out, I put him in charge of the earth. And the last guy, he was in charge of the water, to get water for all of us to clean. Me, the blood off my knuckles. 3 dice. 4, 4, 1. A 4 is confused. Make no more attempts here. I'm starting to enter that sort of death spiral in the game. So I am confused, which means I cannot make rolls on do something anything. And I need 2 critical deeds. I am stuck here in combat because I'm exhausted. I can't make any rolls there to defeat the Scourge. So I am stuck with magic, and I have no critical insight. I mean, I have no destined status. I would have to get an extremely lucky roll. We're going to call this an Anthony roll. If I roll 3 dice, subtracting at 3 dice and taking the lower, and I don't add anything, I need a 6. That's like 3 rolls of 6 here, even on a 5, even on a 4. It's not going to happen. I could give up. 16 minutes in. I'm going to make 1 roll at this, but let's see what happens. Sometimes there's problems that no man is going to solve on his own. Spirit wanes. No, it's a 2. Power spike. Add a critical insights or lose your destined status. Already lost my destined status. So I am 2 critical deeds, 2 critical insights, with no ability anymore to do combat, with no ability to do any more, do something, anything. And let's just go back to this. I gave up. These fools had no idea what they're doing. I wouldn't have been the first. They all laughed at me when I got back to court. They said, "Ha, you think you're the first upstart who's decided that he could try to solve the problems with the southern barons? Maybe I'll come back here one day with my assistants Tantalus and Squire Bolt and see if I can actually solve these problems." More later.